My 2 cents, the Transchurian candidate. Welcome to my new series, My 2 cents. With how popular my first installment of the septic community was, I decided to go ahead and start producing this one as well. As a concept, it has been something I have been thinking about doing for a while now. The idea for My 2 cents goes back to when I first started creating content out here under this identity of mine. Back then, I wasn't sure how people would take my point of view or opinions on a given subject. I was just starting out and didn't have anything to gauge it by after all. After seeing the response from people to my content, especially with my first video in the septic community series, it showed me that people were interested in hearing what I had to say. It showed me there was a marketplace for my ideas, and that My 2 cents as a series could do well. I hope you all enjoy this first installment and future ones to come. When debuting a series like this, I would say choosing a good topic is key. Boy, did I ever choose a good one with this first episode too. With a title like The Transchurian Candidate, it better be. Or that would just be pure clickbait and I'm an asshole. Well, I am an asshole, but I'm not being one here on the note of clickbait. Chelsea Bradley Manning is running for U.S. Senate out of the state of Maryland, and there's so much that could be said, both in the note of humor and in being serious. So I decided I'm going to chime in and start flinging pennies Manning's way. I'll make sure to keep a couple, so I can still put my 2 cents in here though. Before I do that, I want it to be known I have nothing against trans people. I think they do have mental issues when gender dysphoria is in the DSM as one. In what I say about Chelsea Manning in regards to this subject, it is about that person, not all trans people. After all, even with saying that, I know people will be calling me a transphobic Nazi after this video probably. That is par for the course with leftists after all. Where do I start when it comes to the train wreck of Chelsea Manning and her, or him, depending on your point of view, running for Senate? I guess the best place to start would be to show you the shit show of a campaign ad and then go from there.
I'm Chelsea Manning and I approve this message.
We live in trying times. Times of fear. Of suppression. Of hate. We don't need more or better leaders. We need someone willing to fight. We need to stop asking them to give us our rights. They won't support us. They won't compromise. We need to stop expecting that our systems will somehow fix themselves. We need to actually take the reins of power from them. We need to challenge them at every level. We need to fix this. We don't need them anymore. We can do better.
You're damn right we got this.
Chelsea Manning, a felon that aligns herself/himself with Antifa, a terrorist group, is someone who has committed treason and honestly believes they are better than the sleazeballs in Washington? Is the Transchurian candidate serious? Manning is no better than them. Hell, he/she is at the same level as them when it comes to the caliber of person they are. Manning is a mentally unstable waste of space who should either be in a loony bin or a military prison. Not running for U.S. Senate in the state of Maryland. When you get a 35-year sentence, the crime you committed was a serious one. But for some reason now, convicted felons still can't vote for the most part, which is changing, but they can run for political office for some reason. Could it be that the criminal element, aka Democrats and rhinos, smell their own and it is one reason why that is the case? I mean, they still want their political offices even though they are criminals after all. Obama didn't pardon Manning. He commuted the sentence. There's a big difference. That difference? Manning is still a convicted felon, as I've already said. Manning received a dishonorable discharge as a result of his/her crimes. You can't buy a firearm with a discharge of this type, but you can run for political office these days. Am I the only one who sees a problem with this? I hope not. If I was, then everyone would have gone off the leftist Marxist identity politics deep end, and I don't believe they have. After all, we are talking about someone who committed treason that aligns themselves with a terrorist organization like Antifa. These things alone, not including the felon part, should be a big red flag for anyone on staying away from Manning and not voting for him/her. It is so big of one. Even a legally blind person could see it from the International Space Station. The same is true with Manning's campaign ad and there being big red flags. If you noticed, most of the footage, minus the torch march of the alt-right, was of Antifa-instigated incidents, as in they started the shit and forced someone else to stop it. Yet Manning actually has the balls, no matter how shrunken and shriveled they are from hormone treatments, to actually portray them as victims of suppression. Sorry, you meant to say oppression, Manning, you brain-damaged half-wit. Manning actually thinks that illegals are being suppressed as well, like they have some right to come here to the US when they do not, and they're being told to go home is some form of oppression. Oops, I meant suppression. From there, you gotta love how Manning completely ignores historical fact on the note of communists create the fascist as a response to them, and the communists then rebrand themselves as anti-fascist after getting their asses handed to them for starting shit. Leading up to the Second World War, it happened in Germany, the same with Italy too. The only difference between back then and today is who are supposedly the oppressors and who are the oppressed in their Marxist bullshit theories. Back then, it was what we would call the 1% who were the oppressors and the masses were the oppressed. Today, whites, especially men, are the oppressors, with each group behind them being oppressors and oppressed. Which I have to say for the record, you cannot be both an oppressor and a member of the oppressed, unless you are talking about the black slave bosses back in the days of chattel slavery, that is. Manning makes the assertion that he/she will fight for these ideals and take power. It is like he/she has become the trans Hitler. Just saying. But in actuality, I think Chelsea Manning is the Transchurian candidate, as I have already called this train wreck of a person once. Now I'm saying this in large part joking, but hear me out on it. It is just my conspiracy theory side having a little fun and my joking around in the process. The Obama administration was one of the worst for cracking down on whistleblowers, yet in his cold, dead heart, all of a sudden, at the end of his term, he feels bad and decides to commute the sentence of one he probably made the biggest example of? That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Manning was an analyst with Army intelligence that has been portrayed, like Lee Harvey Oswald was, as a substandard soldier. This is when people in their assigned positions don't get there being substandard soldiers. There is no way Oswald would have been part of a classified radar operation during the height of the Cold War, and none in regards to Manning being an intelligence analyst with the War on Terror. I don't care that military intelligence is an oxymoron, because that does not appear to be the case here. Manning, in his/her position, most likely had interaction with other intelligence agencies, to at least some extent, with how they share intel. What Chelsea did, I am sure pissed off more than a few in said agencies, especially with how Obama had a bug up his ass. We are talking about the deep state, which the CIA is riddled with the cancer of. The same people who brought us MK Ultra, Sirhan, and John Hinckley Jr. more than likely gained access to Manning during his/her time of incarceration. I'm going to guess that's about when Bradley decided to become Chelsea. What's the best way to pay back someone who aired your dirty little secrets? You make them your bitch and turn them into an asset. Before being detained, Manning never showed any signs of being trans. To get a security clearance, people are evaluated psychologically. It wasn't picked up when Bradley was. The gender dysphoria only appeared after being in custody and undergoing what some would call torture. Who is to say that things like sleeping naked weren't the only things done to Manning? Just picture it. Someone at the CIA gets the bright idea to turn Manning into a Manchurian candidate. With the political climate, what did this mean? It meant turning Manning into a trans, Antifa-loving, shrivel-nutted extremist in order to win over the far left. On that note, I think they did a good job. Manning sure does tick off all the SJW leftist boxes, minus that negative of being a white, but being trans does make up for that, after all. Imagine if this scenario was actually real. It would go to show the CIA needs to talk to Hollywood on how to make a Manchurian candidate, where they created the Transchurian one. Just look at these actors who played the character of the Manchurian candidate in both the original and remake. If you want to win over the masses, this is what you go with. If you want to win over the feminists, their male future rapist allies, the SJWs, soy boys, and the like, this is who you go with. Which would go to show that the CIA has been tinkering with the crack recipe and smoking up all the test batches. Sorry, I couldn't resist letting my imagination get away from me and let it have a little fun. When the thought of Manning being a Transchurian candidate popped in my head on a humorous note, it gave me a good laugh and the opportunity to cover something, while still having some fun in the process. If you liked this video, depending on where you are watching it, please give it an upvote or thumbs up. If you want to know when new content of mine hits the internet, don't forget to subscribe to one or more of my social media or video accounts listed here. Also, with YouTube, don't forget to ring that bell. You can find all of my video content on both BitChute and YouTube. This may not be the case with other places I upload to, but I will try to minimize this happening. You are always welcome to interact with me at any of these sites on the list, so feel free to do so. If you have anything you want me to cover in a video, when it comes to news or current events, send it right along to me. I will try to do my best to cover it. As always, thank you for watching.